She was drowning in more ways than one. Emily Carter, heiress to one of the most powerful beauty empires in America, wasn't supposed to be trapped in a luxury SUV sinking beneath floodwaters on a back road in the middle of nowhere. She wasn't supposed to be screaming for help in a storm she never saw coming. And she definitely wasn't supposed to be saved by a stranger with haunted eyes, a machete in his hand, and a past darker than the storm overhead. 3 hours earlier, she was engaged to a man the world adored. Now she was covered in mud, hiding her identity, and sleeping in a rundown farmhouse with a man who used to be someone else, someone the world believed was responsible for a tragedy that cost 12 lives. What Emily didn't know yet was that the real storm was only just beginning. And when secrets resurface, lives collide, and past sins come knocking, no one, especially not Emily or her mysterious savior, will ever be the same again. If you think you know how this story ends, think again. Because some love stories are born not from fairy tales but from the wreckage. And this one, it starts with a flood. The rain fell like it had something to prove. Sheets of it slammed against the windshield of the black Mercedes SUV, drowning out the sound of Emily Carter's frantic breathing. The water was rising fast, already to her waist. Her trembling fingers fought with the door handle, but it was no use. The power locks were dead, the electronics fried by the floodwaters surging through the back roads of Willow Creek, North Carolina. "Help, please!" Emily screamed, her voice raw. "The water's rising!" Outside the vehicle, through a curtain of rain, a figure appeared. Tall, rugged, soaked to the bone, he looked like something conjured by the storm itself. He held a machete in one hand, his eyes locked onto hers through the glass. For a split second, Emily's breath caught, not in fear, but disbelief. Then he moved. "Take my hand," the man shouted, pounding the glass with the handle of the blade. The window shattered with surgical precision, spraying shards into the rising water. Without hesitation, he reached inside. Emily hesitated. Her engagement ring caught the dim light, one last reminder of the world she'd just run from. "Now!" the man barked, and she grabbed his hand. He pulled her out like she weighed nothing. Her designer gown was soaked, clinging to her body like a trap. She stumbled into his arms, gasping, shivering, and yet she had never felt more alive. "I'm Daniel," he said, his voice low but steady. "You're safe now." "Emily," she whispered, omitting her last name on instinct. The name Carter meant power, money, danger, and right now all she wanted was to disappear. Just 3 hours earlier, Emily Carter had been the queen of New York's elite. Heiress to Carter Beauty Corporation, she was on the verge of marrying Ethan Bradley, the man who had charmed both her and the company's boardroom. The engagement party had been held at her family's Manhattan estate, a dazzling affair of champagne couture and calculated smiles. But behind a half-closed door, Emily had witnessed everything fall apart. "I don't love her," Ethan whispered to Vanessa Green, his business partner and her supposed best friend. "This marriage is a transaction. Once the merger is done, we can run the company the way we want." Emily had seen enough. She left that night in a storm that mirrored her own emotional wreckage. No driver, no security, just a directionless escape down unfamiliar roads. And now she was standing in a downpour, rescued by a stranger with haunted eyes and rough hands. They trudged through mud, Emily clutching Daniel's arm for balance. His cabin was small and remote, built on a natural elevation above the floodplain. It smelled of cedar, damp earth, and something else, something unspoken like grief. He handed her a towel and a dry shirt. "It was my sister's," he said quietly. "Thank you," Emily replied, holding the simple fabric like it was sacred. It smelled faintly of lavender. Over a dinner of beans, fresh bread, and something Daniel called farm cheese, Emily found herself lowering walls she hadn't even realized she'd built. "What were you doing out here?" Daniel finally asked, his gaze never leaving hers. "I was escaping," she said simply, "from a life that suddenly didn't feel like mine." Daniel nodded slowly. "I get it." Later, as he showed her the guest room, something under the bed caught her eye. A box, unassuming, dusty. Part of her knew she shouldn't look. The other part couldn't help it. She slid it out. Inside, beneath layers of old sketches and broken pens, was a plaque. A prestigious architecture award. Her breath caught. Michael Walker," she murmured aloud. "The man who had vanished from headlines years ago. The brilliant architect blamed for the collapse of the New Dawn housing project an accident that had claimed 12 lives, including his wife and young daughter. The door creaked. Daniel stood there, expression stone cold. "That man's dead," he said. "He died with them." Emily's hands trembled as she slid the box back under the bed. That night she lay awake listening to the storm batter the roof, not from fear, but from awe. Who was this man who had rescued her, who carried the weight of tragedy in his bones and yet had offered her warmth, food, and silence, not judgment? For the first time in her life, Emily Carter didn't feel like an heiress, or a brand, or a pawn in a corporate chess game. She felt like a person. And for reasons she couldn't yet explain, she needed to know more about the man called Daniel Walker. But something told her this storm was just the beginning. I'm truly sorry to pause the story here, but I promise what's coming next will leave you breathless. Before we continue, let me ask you, what would you do if you discovered the person who saved your life was hiding a tragic secret? Do you believe love can grow in the shadows of pain and deception? Tell me in the comments below. And I'd love to know, what country are you watching from? If this story touched something in you, please give it a like and drop a heart to show your support. Your feedback means everything. Emily Carter woke to the soft hum of rain tapping on the tin roof, a sound far gentler than the violent storm of the night before. Wrapped in an oversized flannel shirt and wool blanket, she sat on the edge of the guest bed, staring at the award plaque she had secretly pulled out again, Michael Walker Excellence in Sustainable Design. The same name that once graced architectural magazines. The same man the media had crucified. Down the hall, the smell of fresh coffee drifted through the air. Daniel stood in the kitchen, shirt sleeves rolled up, quietly preparing breakfast, as if they hadn't shared a bombshell the night before. As if she hadn't uncovered a life he'd buried. "You slept?" he asked without looking up. Eventually she lied. They ate in silence, the tension between them thick. Daniel's hands, strong, calloused, deliberate, worked the frying pan like he was solving a math equation. Emily couldn't stop staring at them, knowing those same hands had once sketched blueprints that would become the grave for his family. "I can help with dishes," she offered, trying to break the ice. "You ever washed a plate before?" His tone wasn't cruel, just honest. It hit harder than she expected. "No," she admitted, flushing. He handed her a towel. "Then it's a good day to start." For the next 2 days, Emily stayed in the farmhouse. She learned to sweep, to feed chickens, to wash laundry by hand. It was exhausting and clumsy, and she botched nearly every task. But Daniel never laughed. He never coddled. He just taught. And somewhere in that quiet rhythm between morning chores and late-night cups of chamomile, she started to feel like a different version of herself. One that didn't live behind boardroom armor. Still, Emily kept her truth buried. Daniel believed she was just a woman on the run from a broken engagement. And while that was true, it wasn't the whole truth. Then everything shattered. It began with the sound of engines, 3 luxury SUVs tearing down the muddy road. Daniel stepped out onto the porch just in time to see a cameraman leap from one of the vehicles, followed by a man in a gray suit. His voice sliced through the humid air like a knife. Emily, she froze. Ethan Bradley. He strode toward the house like he owned the land it stood on. His hair was perfectly coiffed, his designer shoes caked in mud, and his expression painted with performative concern. "Thank God you're safe," he said, pulling her into a hug she didn't return. "We've been searching everywhere." Daniel's gaze darted between them, his posture tense. "You know this guy?" he asked. Emily hesitated. "Too long." Ethan extended his hand. Ethan Bradley, fiancé of Emily Carter. Or should I say, heiress to Carter Beauty Corporation. The air went still. Daniel's eyes narrowed as if the pieces of a puzzle had just snapped into place. "You're Carter," he whispered, barely audible, "of Carter Beauty." "Daniel, please." "You lied to me." His voice was ice. "It wasn't like that. You let me think you were just someone, just a woman. But you're her." "I didn't mean to deceive you," she said, stepping forward, but he pulled back. "You wore my sister's clothes, ate my food, slept under my roof, and all the while you were laughing at the poor farmer behind my back." "No, I wasn't mocking you. I swear the cameras," he said, suddenly turning to the cameraman filming their exchange. "This is all a show, isn't it? A PR stunt. Did you bring them to make yourself look humble Emily's heart broke at the look on his face. Betrayal, disappointment, and something worse, disbelief. "Get off my land," he said quietly. "Daniel, I said go." Ethan wrapped an arm around her shoulders and steered her toward the SUV. "Come on, babe. Let's get you cleaned up. The press conference is tomorrow." From the back seat, Emily looked through the rain-soaked window. Daniel stood on the porch, still as stone, and beside him, Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore, the older woman from the nearby farmhouse, had emerged, her sorrowful gaze fixed on the departing vehicle. That night, in a luxury suite at the Regent Grand Hotel, Ethan poured champagne and spoke of salvaging the company's public image. "We'll spin it like you had a breakdown," he said casually. "The runaway bride seeking meaning in the countryside." Emily didn't respond. She stared at her hands, rough, blistered, real. They no longer belonged in this world. "Did you know who Daniel really was?" she asked suddenly. Ethan blinked. "You mean Michael Walker?" Her heart dropped. "How did you come on, Emily?" he said with a smirk. "You think I didn't vet the man keeping you company?" "Of course I knew. It's part of why we need to do damage control." "You can't be seen with him." She stared at him, stunned. And in that moment, everything clicked. The failed housing project, the material substitutions, the missing funds. "You were involved," she whispered. You signed off on those contracts." Ethan's smirk vanished. "Careful what you accuse me of." But Emily was already rising to her feet. She grabbed her purse, heart-racing fingers, dialing a number she hadn't used in years. Helen Dawson, her late father's old secretary. "Meet me at the corporate archive," she said. "Tonight." Hours later, in the dim basement of Carter HQ, Emily dug through boxes until her fingers found them. Contracts signed not by Michael Walker, but by Ethan Bradley. He had ordered the material changes that led to the tragedy. He had ruined Daniel's life, and her own father never knew. By dawn, Emily had made a decision. This wasn't just about love. This was about justice, and it wasn't over. "I'm so sorry to stop here, but trust me, the next part will be worth the wait." Now let me ask you, what would you do if you discovered the person you loved had been destroyed by someone you once trusted? And do you believe people deserve a second chance even after a devastating betrayal? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And tell me, what country are you watching from? If this story speaks to you, please drop a like and send a heart to support. Your encouragement keeps these stories alive. The river had swelled again. From the helicopter window, Emily Carter looked down at Willow Creek. The rains had returned with a vengeance, and much of the village lay underwater again. Homes were submerged, livestock stranded, families evacuating. But one figure stood tall amidst the chaos: Daniel Walker. He moved through the flood like he belonged to the storm-drenched, barking orders, helping lift an elderly woman into a rescue boat, then sprinting back toward the school where a temporary shelter was being set up. He hadn't seen her yet, but Emily saw everything. She stepped out of the helicopter into driving rain. Her designer boots were ruined within seconds. She didn't care. "I came to help," she called out as she ran to the cluster of volunteers. "There are supplies in the chopper, blankets, food, medicine." The murmurs started almost instantly. "That's her, the heiress. The one who lived here pretending." Daniel finally turned. Their eyes met through the storm. His expression didn't change. "There's a shelter going up at the school," he said flatly. "We need more hands there." That was all. No reunion, no questions, no warmth. Emily bit back the sting of it. She turned and followed the others toward the shelter. For the next 12 hours, she worked like she'd never worked in her life, sorting provisions, comforting crying children, guiding the elderly to safety. No cameras, no press, just sweat, mud, and effort. When the water finally began to recede in the early morning, Emily stepped outside for air. "You look like hell," came a voice behind her. She turned. Daniel stood there holding 2 mugs of steaming coffee. His hair dripped with rain. His shirt was streaked with dirt. "You should see yourself," she said, taking the cup with numb hands. "Thanks." A long silence settled between them. Finally, he asked, "Why did you come?" She hesitated. "Because I found out the truth about Ethan, about what he did to your project. I submitted the evidence to the district attorney's office this morning. They're reopening the case." Daniel's face didn't move, but his fingers tightened around the mug. He signed off on the material changes. Emily continued. He used my father's illness to gain control over supply contracts. He's the reason it all collapsed. Daniel turned away slightly as if bracing for something. I know that doesn't change what happened to Rosa or Lily, she said softly. But I needed you to know I'm not here to save you. I'm here to stand beside you, if you'll let me. He finally looked at her. Really looked. And your company, he asked. Your legacy. I don't care about legacy, she said. Not if it means being part of something built on silence. She paused. I created a compensation fund for the families affected by the collapse. I know it won't bring anyone back, but maybe it's a beginning. Daniel stared at the ground. I've lived in the shadow of that day for so long, he murmured. I forgot what hope feels like. She reached out not to touch him, just to be near him. Then maybe we remember it together. A shout interrupted them. One of the makeshift levees had broken. Water was rushing toward the school. Instantly, Daniel snapped into action. Get everyone to the second floor. Now the next 2 hours were a blur. Children lifted into classrooms, furniture stacked as barricades, volunteers working like a machine. Emily stayed at Daniel's side, soaked to the bone, her hands blistered but steady. When the last person was accounted for and the water finally slowed, they collapsed on the stairs outside the shelter. Dawn was breaking. The village was battered but alive. You're good in a crisis, Daniel said quietly. I had a good teacher, Emily replied. She looked over at him. You know, Gabriel might have died with Rosa and Lily, but Daniel Walker, he saved me. Twice. He turned to face her. And Emily Carter. She taught me how to breathe again. For the first time, he smiled. A real one. And then under the soft gold light of a sunrise cutting through clouds, he kissed her. No hesitation, no fear. Just truth. Weeks passed. The town rebuilt stronger than before. Emily stayed. She split her time between Willow Creek and New York, transforming Carter Beauty into a sustainable company that partnered with rural communities. Together, she and Daniel launched a design institute in honor of his daughter, the Lily Walker School for Sustainable Architecture. They married quietly in a field of wildflowers near the river. Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore stood beside them, placing Rosa's wedding pearls around Emily's neck. It was a ceremony not of opulence but of grace, and in every moment they chose each other again. Because love isn't born in perfection, it's born in the wreckage, and rebuilt one brick at a time. Now let me ask you, do you think people can truly change when given the chance to start over? And would you walk away from a life of comfort to find something real? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what country you're watching from. If this story moved you, please drop a heart, and share it with someone who still believes in second chances. And one more thing, what did you think of the story overall? Comment number 3 if you loved it. Comment number 2 if it was just okay. And comment number 1 if you think we could have done better. Your voice matters more than you know.